All right, I got to shift gears a little bit and get your thoughts about a couple issues before we head out the door. One is Gaza and Donald Trump's, um, wow, how do I explain this? Bizarre uh, position on Gaza, which he unveiled to the world maybe 2 weeks ago when Netanyahu was in the Oval Office, where Donald Trump said that the solution is to remove the people from Gaza who live there now, the Palestinians, either forcibly. Well, he a classic Donald Trump. He didn't get specific, but so it's either going to be forcibly or to entice them to leave somehow or other, force Egypt and Jordan to take them, compel them to take them, which was so bizarre, Rummana. They just think about this. The whole MAGA movement is based on the notion that we as a country are being invaded by people who don't live in our country, aliens or illegal aliens, right? And we have a right as Americans to close off our border to all illegal aliens and deport all the ones who are here now. And in the same breath, they're saying, Egypt, Jordan, take all these people. Like, dude, being MAGA doesn't mean you don't have to be consistent on anything, okay? He says the neo-Nazis in Germany are right when they say we don't want any new immigrants to come to our country. But Egypt and Jordan, take all these immigrants, or we're gonna punish you.
Yeah, it's just, and he's gonna make a resort there, right? Like after there was gonna level Gaza, and we're gonna put like everything's about putting a resort or his Trump Tower. That's what he just wants, right? Like a Trump Tower in Gaza, and I clearly find it reprehensible that this is the plan. And when they say that, oh, Palestinians, they can choose to leave, they're not going to be given a choice. Okay. They're just going to be shipped out. And yeah, it's again, it's insane. I think, no, I do not endorse this plan that Donald Trump has, in place for Gaza. And from what I understand, the reports I was reading yesterday, the Netanyahu is all on board with this plan, and he's like starting to get the ball moving, but I don't know what that means. He's definitely on board, and it's something he wanted. And I'm sure this was something that was discussed. I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that was discussed when they were talking about ceasefire deals, about what they're going to do. There's no way.
No, I don't even think. I think you're doing it a service by calling it a plan. I think it's like a level of trash talking.
Yeah. Well, you think so?
When I think about it, and so follow me on this. It's upsetting on so many levels. Okay, just ethnic cleansing on steroids, and to openly promote it. And is very upsetting. And so MAGA knows when they're upsetting people like you and me, and they got a kick out of it. They call it trolling. So, oh yeah, we don't really mean it. We're just messing with Ben and Rummana. And so it's like, okay, you just gotta sort of take it in stride. Is that it? You just gotta sort of ignore it, because how are they going to implement it in a million years? How are they going to implement it? How is Israel going to, because Donald Trump says no American troops will be there, okay? So it's going to be up to Israeli troops to move 2 million people out of Gaza. So is Israel going to force 2 million people to leave Gaza and Egypt and Jordan to take them? You know what I'm saying? It's not even a plan. It's just like, oh, let's aggravate somebody with this insane talk. That's on one level how I view it. But how do you take it seriously? Like, you're an editorial writer, you're a columnist. So how do you address this in a column? Do you take it serious as a quote unquote plan? Do you view it as trash talking? How would you approach this?
I don't know. I would give it a few days, but I think he's deadly. I mean, I don't want to use that word, but I think he is serious. I think he's serious. he's saying that he's going to get rid of all these jobs, and he gets rid of all these jobs. You know, I think everything he says he's going to try to do in some way. So I don't know if it's necessarily trash talking, because I think Donald Trump, 2016 was just a taste of it. And, he said when he says he's going to do something, he does it. Whether, that will change. We've also seen him saying that, we're not going to accept, the U.S. Postal Office isn't going to accept anything from China, and they implement it, the next day he changes his mind. I know things are very fluid right now, but I do take him seriously when he says that. I don't know if it's just trash talking.
Yeah, I'm on this particular issue. I think you're right in that ultimately that's the goal, to remove all Palestinians from Gaza. I think you're right, but what he's saying is so half-assed. I don't know how. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how he's going to go about it. So that's the part where I'm thinking he's just trash talking like he trash talking. I'm going to deport tens of millions of people in the United States. Yeah. And it's like a handful of that, because A, he doesn't have the capability, and B, the economy would fall apart.
I know, exactly.
If he did it. All right, your thoughts as a lifelong journalist about Trump not allowing the Associated Press reporter into the Oval Office and on the presidential plane, because Associated Press will not change, I can't say this with a straight face, the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, as Donald Trump has ordered. Your thoughts?
No, I think that's insane. I mean, AP style, like, we at the Sun Times, I'm sure it was the same for you at the Reader. The Reader has its own style. Certain words are capitalized, certain words aren't. Like, when I've been just being in the office at the Sun Times, we've changed so many ways that we write something. And, JB Pritzker had periods with it, and then JD Vance doesn't. And then we went back to JB Pritzker, the JB being no periods. We used to say President Bush or President Obama. Then we changed it to President Barack Obama, putting the full name in. So we've changed it. So you have most papers have their own styles. We used to say Chicago Police, and then police would be capitalized. Now it's Chicago, small p. So it's like you kind of learn these things as an editor, but ideally you follow the Sun Times style, but overall AP style is what everybody, kind of 90%, most news organizations follow. So I'm thinking they're thinking, oh, everybody's going to follow AP style and listen to what AP says when they're talking about that region, and that's what made them mad. But not allowing that journalist into the press conference is just asinine, but not unexpected. And so I think the more there's going to be articles that are going to be critical of Trump from these different organizations that are like, putting his feet to the fire. So are you going to, so I think what's going to happen is there's going to be more of this. You're going to see more of this happening. And the only people left is going to be Fox News. There's just going to be like one person from Fox News sitting there in a press conference, sitting by themselves, and they'll be like parroting each other. That's what I don't know. It's going to happen to more organizations. I think that's insane, to not allow the Associated Press for that reason. There's one thing if it was like some sort of reason where the person was violent when they came into, like, when that reporter came in last press conference, they went buck wild or slapped somebody, but they just didn't change the name. And so it's I'm totally flabbergasted, but not surprised. I think this is going to happen more. I think this is going to happen more. You would be allowed in, Ben.
Oh, are you kidding? I would not be allowed in. But that riff you had was fun. I was smiling. I should write about this. What Rummana said is so true. So when I first got started, I didn't go to journalism school, and I never took a course in journalism, so I didn't learn the basics of journalism until I was on the job. And it was basically an editor telling me, "What are you, an idiot? You don't know any of these things? Here's the AP guide. Memorize it." So the editor gave me this AP guide, which I still have. I still have the copy. It's Oh my God, am I old, Rummana? This is from the 70s. I got this thing. Okay. You were a baby. All right. When I got this thing. And I remember studying it, quote unquote, at night, and then it made me fall asleep. It was so boring because it was all about like you capitalize this, you capitalize the Gulf of Tonkin, but so like when you capitalize and when you don't capitalize, and all these rules, and they impress that upon me. And then I get to start writing for the reader, and you're right. It was like they had their own rules. So, like for instance, the reader, for whatever reason, would not capitalize. Like if you wrote North Side or South Side or West Side or East Side, they would just lowercase it. And everybody else in the freaking Chicago universe uppercases it. I'm like, reader, why? And there was some proof back in the day. They had proofreaders out there. I am not making this up. This is a long time ago. There was like proofreaders that the reader had, and there was this one dude, Shelley, and he had this whole philosophy of why you don't do it, which was so baffling. I couldn't follow him. He was like an old beatnik or something, Rummana, that they was he was proofreader. I was like, all right, you know what? I don't care why you don't do it. I'll just lowercase it because you pay the bills. You know, like I was saying earlier, might is right at a certain degree. So yeah, you're Gulf of Mexico should be Gulf of Mexico. If Donald Trump doesn't have the authority to change it unilaterally, then you shouldn't recognize it. It's like if I want to call the United Center the Benny J Center, that doesn't mean it's it's the Benny J Center just because I say it's the Benny J Center. But here's MAGA. The president has the right to it. And they kick them out. Go ahead, Rummana.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad I'm glad people did stories on it, right? And I'm glad the AP isn't, bending towards like, oh, okay, let's just call it that so we can get in. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do moving forward, but I did feel bad. I felt for the reporter and I felt for the AP when that happened. And I don't know, do you think they'll change? I mean, they might say that this is what the president wants, but we're sticking with this, right? Yeah. I don't know. I got to check the guide because there used to be AP always changes its style too. Like we were talking about Gaza. For the longest time, we follow AP style on ceasefire, the word ceasefire, and it was hyphenated. And then I did a column maybe a month or two ago, and I saw my ceasefire the hyphen was taken out, and I'm like, wait. I read a story where ceasefire all of a sudden was like one word. And so that was changed and I didn't know. So I always go online and check it because even AP changes its style altogether. There's certain words like cell phone. I think for us, it's one word and I don't know what the AP style is, but I'm always checking AP style because I've worked as an editor.
Right.
And so I know what the Sun-Times style is, and I know what AP style is for the most part. But sometimes I'll just go straight to the guys on our layout desk, and I'm like, "Hey, isn't this our style?" And like, it's so funny because some people still remember the old style, and then one of my colleagues will be working on something, and then I'm like, "No, we don't do that anymore." Like when you say like a state rep, and then you put like their party affiliate, you were like D/Chicago. Before they used to be in parentheses, but now it's basically commas, and someone changes it back all the time, and I'm like, "No, it's not." I think it's like without commas anymore. And then I go back and I ask someone on the copy desk, I'm like, hey, can you confirm and tell me what our style is? And sometimes even those guys, like, they're like, you know what, people kind of interchange things. And sometimes it's just too much, too much work for people. And I don't know. And like, when I started covering criminal courts, I had an editor who told me the difference between bail and bond. And even at court, and I tried to use like the right, I think you post, I think it's bail. I think when they give you an amount and you post a bond, but everybody calls it a bond. Even the judges call it a bond when they like put amount out there. So it's like everybody's like the words are like flipped around and people interchange it. And then one editor was very particular about it. And then I was like, I was going to tell someone, oh, well, actually it's this way. And then they're like, oh, everybody uses it that way. And so it's like sometimes it's a wild west out there in terms of copy editing. And unlike you, Ben, when I was a student, I had immigrant parents and they, I didn't know how to become a journalist. So I took journalism classes and I took classes with AP and I learned about like certain words. And, obviously that was the 90s, so things have changed, but there are some things that stuck with me, and I still remember that. Like, we don't use the Oxford comma in journalism. And for people who say that, like, so to explain to people, so when you have a list of things, you say Cubs, Bears, and Sox.
Yeah.
Like, you have a comma before the and, you get rid of it in journalism. So it's things like that.
I didn't know that was called the Oxford comma.
I think that's what it's called. I always go, oh, the Oxford comma.
All right. So do you capitalize north side or south side?
Yes, I do. But if you say north and west sides, then sides is lowercase. Like, if you say sides, if you see south and west sides, north and south sides, then it's just then the sides is lowercase.
See,
so I'm sure your listeners want to know more than.
So here, folks, we are now talking about standards of accuracy that journalism strives to reach, while we're writing about an administration of liars who feel no compulsion whatsoever to tell the truth. And this is sort of what I was getting at before. All of journalism right now, Rummana, in Chicago, is like an irrelevancy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you lowercase sides, but uppercase side. I'm sure you have an explanation. Copy desk at the Sun-Times, copy desk at the Reader, if there is one anymore. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. Shelley, that was the beatnik who he had a whole philosophy about. I don't want to hear about it, man. Trump is lying every day. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? It's like worrying about whether there's dirt in the corners of the Titanic as it's sinking or something. The ship is sinking, and you're talking about northwest sides. I thank God. Sorry, Rummana, I didn't mean to go on that tangent there. Yeah, we're almost out of time. We really are out of time, and I got to get your riffs on Elon Musk bringing his kid to the White House and to the Oval Office. I mean, there's so much about Elon Musk that is just mind-boggling. This is a guy who himself is an immigrant, and he's leading a charge of quote-unquote real Americans against immigrants. And MAGA, I don't know how you go through life without your brains not blowing up from all the inconsistencies and the illogic of everything you do. And he's been given access to all those secrets on the computers governing our federal government. He and his little flunkies have been given access to it. And then he shows up at the White House, and Donnie's sitting at a desk, and he's got his kids on his shoulder, Musk does, and he's not following the dress code. He's dressed like me, Rummana. Okay, even if I went to the White House, I would be dressed better than Elon Musk would. Okay, and he's just openly contemptuous of Donald Trump. He's making it clear when he shows up in the White House with his kid on his shoulder and a baseball hat on his head that he's in charge, not Donnie. It's so obvious.
I guess he was trying to channel Kennedy. John Kennedy with the little John Kennedy when he was little. Like, people were showing, like, I think that's what he was trying to do, like hiding in the cabinet, and he's trying to like show, like, yeah, so he's trying to say that, look, I'm in charge, my little child is here, and he's playing around just like John was when he was a little boy. And it's ludicrous. Yeah. And you're talking about he's an immigrant himself, and he's being anti-immigrant, but it's particularly brown immigrants, right, that he's kind of going after. And so one of the things that's just so crazy, also, JD Vance is married to a woman who's a child of immigrants. And then, meanwhile, he's going, overseas in Germany, talking to the far right groups who are anti-immigrant. And it's all very unsettling. But none of the things that these people are doing make sense. I mean, so this is what we're gonna, it's all hypocritical, and it doesn't make sense, and it's not supposed to make sense. So that's just the way it is. For them, this makes sense, but it's totally illogical.
Wow. Yeah, they're singing a song, like they respond to the melody, and you and I can't hear the melody.
Yeah, exactly. And this makes sense in their world, and so it might not make sense to us, but it makes sense to them.
All right. So we'll close with this. It's been a very gloom and doomy conversation. So if people want just a little break from the gloom and doom and the horror of what Donald Trump represents to our country, the end of democracy, what can they watch on TV?
Well, all of a sudden this week I've had a lot of shows that I have to watch. I'm watching Mo and Shogun with Mick, so that's never going to be finished until next year. But I started watching White Lotus. That episode just started. Yellow Jackets just started. There's 2 episodes that dropped. The Cobra Kai last 5 episodes, I think, of the last season are on. Then there's also Love is Blind, which is a reality show. I don't know if you ever heard of, but it's hilarious. It's basically they have couples meet and go on dates and you don't see each other, and then you get to see who that person is and they end up getting married. It's really entertaining. And then there was a show called Muslim Matchmaking that I binged through. It was on Hulu. So there's a lot of things on right now that I'm just like, what do I watch? What do I don't watch? I have to I was reading a book. I have like 100 pages left. And now I'm like, oh, I got to watch all these shows. And Mick is like, he's more of a book reader than I am. And I was telling him my dilemma. I'm like, oh, all these shows that I watch are like on, and I'm confused. I can't read my book. And he's like, can't your shows wait? I'm like, no, not really. I want to watch. I want to be like in touch with what people are talking about, and so a White Lotus, I know you're gonna watch. I just started watching that. I think you'll like it. It's set in Thailand, so and it definitely talks to white privilege, I think, specifically, and just entitlement of Americans. So so far I like the first episode, and we'll have to see as it progresses how good it is this year. But Yellow Jackets I love too. So those are Yellow Jackets I really like a lot. And I don't know if you watch it or if your daughters watch it, because I think a lot of young women especially like it, because it's about a group of soccer players that get stranded, and it's kind of like Lord of the Rings but with young women, and it's kind of like a statement on womanhood and just young women in general and kind of some obstacles that they face. But I really enjoy it, and it's set in the 90s, so that's kind of cool too.
So do you have Apple TV?
I do.
Okay, so I recommend Disclaimer, which
who's in that, or what is that about?
Well, Disclaimer is based on a novel by Renee Knight. Shout out Renee Knight. And it's a convoluted story about, I don't want to give anything away, about what happened, different perspectives of what happened. Let's put it that way, leading up to the death of this young man. And Kevin Kline is in it. It's a great cast. Oh, come on. Cate Blanchett. I'm just thinking of the actress in it. Cate Blanchett's excellent in this flick. Sacha Baron, what's his name? The guy, Borat, he's in it.
Yeah.
And it's great, man. It's Alfonso Cuarón. I'm probably butchering his name. He's a Mexican director. He did Roma. This guy's a genius. That's all I can say. It's
I didn't know he made that.
So. Yeah, he made it, wrote it. It's all him. It's his vision. He's channeling Hitchcock. If you're into Hitchcock, it's, I don't know, it's beautiful. And it's really captivating. And there's some really hot sex scenes in there as well. So I'll throw it all out there for you folks.
Now I know what you're talking about. I remember when it came out and people were talking about it. It's about a woman who has an affair with a young man or something like that.
I don't want to give anything away, okay. But that's essentially, if you heard of it, you heard of it because of that. And I'm saying no more because there's a lot of twists at the end of this show. But Kevin Kline, man, I forgot how good he is. He plays the evil guy in this show, and he's pretty freaking weird, man. So I recommend that. I'm going to watch White Lotus. I'm going to let a few episodes drop before I start watching it. So, all right, Rummana, we've run out of time. I could talk to you forever. Both of us have the gift of gab. I'll let you get back to your workday. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's the great Rummana Hussain of the Chicago Sun-Times. You can read her columns and her editorials. I know which editorial she's writing. I could tell a Rummana editorial. She wrote a great editorial, but I don't know if I'm allowed to promote it about Blago. And So I could tell a Rummana who's saying editorial, but you can read her columns in the Chicago Sun-Times. I also want to thank producer Chris. He does an outstanding job, and I know Rummana agrees with me when they say, hey, producer Chris, give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. Peace and love, everybody.